Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Dr. J's live Q&A. I am your host, Dr. Malea Jensen. This is my co-host, Tucker. Tucker is working from heaven right now. So he just had a heavenly anniversary on February 16th. So Tucker and I are co-hosting. All right. We're waiting for everybody to join in here. This is your opportunity to ask questions, medical questions that you have maybe not been able to ask your doctor, or you just want to know a little bit more about what's going on. Some people who just check in like to just learn the different things that I bring up, different topics. Yesterday we spoke a lot about diabetes and coronary artery disease. I don't think those are topics that we can ever know too much about because the landscape is changing all the time in what really causes these conditions. You know, we talked about insulin resistance, we talk about calcification and what is actually occurring. Is it really LDL, or is that just a mask? Is it a mask for something else where we have been treating something all wrong and maybe not telling people what the actual cause is? If there is one actual cause, I don't think there is. Okay. So that was good about yesterday. And I think, you know, learning more and more about diabetes, and we definitely need to reverse diabetes. It is imperative that we simply don't just take a medication that is a Band-Aid, basically. Diabetes is a disease of blood sugar rising in your bloodstream. All medicines do is divert it into cells and tissue, where we only need about a teaspoon of blood sugar, and we are pushing blood sugar, glucose, into cells that don't need it. There's no biology that in our body that requires glucose. Yet we consume it to ad nauseum, and we are developing insulin resistance and developing diabetes. Diabetes is the #1 cause of coronary artery disease. But as we're finding out, there are more and more things that are surfacing and connecting the dots, which is really important, on plaque buildup and why it builds up in our arteries, why people have heart attacks before the plaque is even narrowing the artery enough to shut off the blood flow. These things are, I don't know that there's any one answer, but simply reducing it to, let's just take a preventative medicine called a statin or any other cholesterol, LDL lowering medication, putting all of your chips into one box and saying it's LDL or it's cholesterol, when we know in fact that even with low LDL, people are still having heart attacks. You know, yesterday we had a brave soldier listener talk about their diabetes and, you know, wanting some, is there a supplement or, you know, to take? And my answer, although hard to hear, is to reverse the diabetes. And yes, it can be reversed. We just simply give medications. You know, there's a story I heard online about, you know, a lady who goes in who finds that she's got some elevated blood pressure. Older lady, okay? Let's just say 70. Older lady with the high blood pressure. And again, who determines what high blood pressure is? But let's just say it's high. I'm not going to give a number because that, you know, it has no basis. But let's just say it's high according to the doctor treating her. They put her on a calcium channel blocker. A calcium channel blocker is a type of blood pressure medicine, okay? It lowers the blood pressure, usually the lower number of the systolic over diastolic. So it will lower the diastolic number more so than the systolic number. But calcium channel blockers, especially amlodipine, many of you have heard that. The other name for it, the branded name was Norvasc many, many years ago. So Norvasc, otherwise known as amlodipine, is notorious for causing swelling, fluid built up in your lower legs. And so the 70-year-old goes back to the doctor and they look at her legs and they say, yeah, I see that you got some swelling building up. And instead of talking to her about the amlodipine, they put her on a diuretic. They put her on a diuretic to get rid of the fluid that the amlodipine was causing. So the woman gets dehydrated, of course, and the woman is having trouble getting to the bathroom, of course. So her doctor sends her to urology. And urology says, oh, you've got an overactive bladder. It's likely due to your lowered estrogen. You know, you're getting older and those muscles don't work as well down there. So they give her a stress incontinence medicine. So you can imagine what this one little episode of high blood pressure led to this woman falling and having a fracture just because no one really talked to her about the medications. Polypharmacy. Polypharmacy, you guys. Looks like we've got to take care of some stuff. I don't have a moderator yet on YouTube over there. So we're just going to have to do a little bit of work here and put some things into timeout. Gio, how are you doing today? Good morning. Thank you for being here. So polypharmacy is something that we need to, if you are younger and you have parents, and I would suggest that you help them, you be an advocate for them, because they don't know. They don't know. In fact, young people don't know. But we need to be well aware of the drugs that we are putting people on for treatment and then for prevention, i.e. the statins. We do not have a deficiency of these medications in our body, just so you know. I know you know that. We have no deficiency of a statin. We have no deficiency of metformin. We have no deficiencies of these medications. But yet we will keep the disease, whatever is causing that woman's high blood pressure. The most common cause will be high insulin. High insulin causes salt and water retention, therefore raising blood pressure. Had we just maybe talked to her about her diet, say, hey, can you lower some bread? Can you lower the pasta and the cereal? Can you eat whole foods? I mean, it just takes a few minutes to explain the most common cause of high blood pressure. It wouldn't take much to describe to a person the most common cause of a heart attack, which is diabetes. And no, there's not a supplement for your diabetes. It's to get rid of the diabetes in the first place. And that would be to lower carbohydrates or get rid of them in some cases. Now, this leads me into a topic, and you guys can comment on this. It leads me into the topic of coronary artery disease. And I know it's like over and over and over ad nauseum talking about this topic, but I need you guys to understand that because there is an injury to the artery, whatever that may be, there has to be an injury to the lining of the artery. And I have talked about different injuries, okay? There could be sugar, insulin, smoking, alcohol, nanoplastics, heavy metals, infections. What do you mean by infections? Could be viruses, bacteria, parasites, fungus. All of those things could be a nidus for coronary artery disease. And you know what, a common one I hear, and I used to hear it all the time, and I thought these patients were simply just off their rocker. They would go to a functional medicine provider, and the provider would tell them that they have fungus, they have yeast, they have candida. They have candida. And looking back, I'm just going, how come everybody has this diagnosis? Everybody has candida? And when I get right down to thinking about it, I'm saying, well, that seems obvious. Probably everybody does have it. Why? Because we feed it. We are feeding candida, fungus. We're feeding all pathogens. We're feeding bacteria and parasites. You think you guys got parasites? I mean, does everybody have parasites? Well, if you're feeding it, you likely do. You are a setup for chronic infections, bacterial, viral, parasitical, fungal, and we continue to feed them. But yet those doctors or providers will just treat them for the candida with a medication or a supplement. It's the biggest thing is, oh, we'll just take a supplement, as if it's not even FDA approved, but yet you don't want to take a doctor prescribed medicine. So you'll take a supplement given to you by an alternative medicine doctor or provider. And I can see where your thinking is. You just want to stay out of the big pharma, but yet you'll take the big supplement instead of that provider telling you that you're simply just feeding your infection, whatever that might be. So what happens when these pathogens, we'll call them pathogens, are allowed to build up in our blood? Well, let's talk about the relationship between tartar on your teeth and arterial plaque, because they're basically one and the same. All right? Tartar irritates our gums. So if you're a person who's got bleeding gums, you got tartar buildup. The fungi, and the bacteria that's in our mouth can now enter from the tartar, the film, the tartar, because that tartar is actually fungi, some bacteria. That's what that is. It's a biofilm. And it's coating your teeth. But it starts to nick at our gums. It's called gingivitis. And then once that starts to bleed, that bacteria and fungus enters the bloodstream. And it can go to your coronary arteries, right? It's going to go to anywhere where there's damage to the arterial lining. I suppose you could say that the bacteria and the fungus wouldn't be a problem unless there is an injury to the lining of the arteries. And I would suspect that there probably is, because the same thing that is feeding the diabetes is also feeding the pathogens. And that would be sugar. Is it only sugar? I don't think so. I really do not think it is only sugar feeding these pathogens. Okay? Do you guys have any thoughts on this? there's so many connections between what I look for in our labs, and it might not be obvious to people because there's so many connecting of the dots. And what do I mean by that? Where do I go from here? When we talk about vitamins and vitamin supplementations, okay, I'll answer Uncle Charlie's question here first because it could play a role. Uncle Charlie asked, does sugar feed all kinds of tumors? I would say the answer is yes. There are some tumors, some cancers that feed on glutamine, which is an amino acid. I think we have a ripe environment for cancer cells. But something that we don't mention often enough, Uncle Charlie, is pathogens could be the cause of the cancer, okay? The cell could be parasites, could be virus, bacteria, fungus. But nonetheless, Uncle Charlie, that particular cell needs to eat in order to grow and stay alive. You could say it eats sugar. I think it does. You could say it eats glutamine. I think it does. You could say it eats iron. I think it does. Iron is the growth limiting nutrient for all pathogens. And if cancer is from a pathogen, we don't know. It would seem like you've tried everything else. Why don't you stop feeding the pathogen that's causing the cancer? But if iron is a growth limiting nutrient for almost all pathogens, you're basically given an all-you-can-eat buffet in your body for all of the pathogens: fungus, parasites, viruses, bacteria. One of those bacteria we hear all too often right now, it's called H. pylori. He loves to grow in our gut. And we treat him with some triple or quadruple antibiotic stuff, right? We give you 4 different medicines to try to fix your H. pylori, knowing darn well, we should know darn well, that H. pylori is actually protected by a fungal biofilm. That's right. If you do have fungus in your body, you likely have an overgrowth of H. pylori because the H. pylori is being protected like a little blanket around or surrounded by the fungus. Okay, let me just hold on. I don't have a moderator right now, so I'm having to do this on my own here. Okay. So this overgrowth of H. pylori is lowering the stomach acid in your body. And when you lower the stomach acid in your body, you don't absorb nutrients. H. pylori damages your stomach cells. Your stomach cells produce intrinsic factor. You need intrinsic factor in order to absorb B12. The treatment for H. pylori with this bacteria is a lot of times treating with a proton pump inhibitor for sometimes forever, doing a PPI like omeprazole or pantoprazole or Prevacid. All of those raise pH. So you're going from a very acidic stomach acid of maybe 1 to 3, and you're putting it at maybe a 4 or a 4.5. Well, when we change the pH of our stomach, guess what? We can't absorb vitamins. Like B vitamins. We can't absorb zinc, calcium, magnesium, selenium, iron. Iron. We can't absorb iron very well. If we can't absorb iron very well, it can hang around in the gut. Interesting. So if we don't absorb iron very well, maybe we're on a PPI. Or maybe we're taking in too much of the kind of iron that we can't absorb. And so if it does hang out in our gut, it can't get absorbed. It can be a feeding ground for bacteria like H. pylori that's wrapped in a fungal coat, which is usually candida. Are you guys listening? So you got sugar coming in. You got iron coming in. You're taking in iron in the wrong form that can't be used, but the pathogens can eat it. That's an interesting concept, you guys. It's a really interesting concept. What is this non-absorbable iron? It's non-heme iron. Non-heme iron is maybe 3% absorbed. Where do we get non-heme iron? In anything processed. Anything processed has synthetic non-heme iron in the ingredient list. That's synthetic non-heme iron. All plants are made of non-heme iron. We are consuming all forms of plants. So we are over-consuming non-heme iron that sits in our gut, sits in tissue, and feeding fungus and bacteria and viruses. It's quite a connection. I'm just right now just kind of thinking through this. And so one of the red flags that I have noticed on people where we check, when I check people's labs, a lot of times I'll get a B12 level. I'll get a folate level. I might even get a B6 or a B3. I might just check B vitamins in general, okay? And what if I'm seeing high B6 and low folate? What could that be? Now that I think about it, could that not be a red flag for some sort of fungus in our body? Is that what the functional medicine people are talking about when they say you have candida? Or did they just get a serum level and see how much candida is in your blood? But what if we don't have that test? What if we don't have that advanced test to look for candida? And we think you must have candida. You got chronic infection. You got chronic infection, sinus infection. And you've gone on antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic, right? And it could be killing the bacteria in the 10-day course. But what if it was fungus? And what if that fungal biofilm was protecting the bacteria? So you just go and you do sinus surgery, right? And of course the sinus surgery is gonna fail because you didn't treat the underlying food for the bacteria. Could be the sugar, could be the fungus, could be the iron. Iron overload is in all tissues. So you get this B6 and you get this folate level, right? And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, maybe I have an overgrowth of fungus. Likely do, you're feeding it crap. Crapola. Why would B6 be elevated? Let's think through it. Why would B6 be elevated? Well, if you do have a fungus on board, fungus produces a waste. So it's like their poop, right? Which is blocking the conversion of B6 to the active B6. So you don't have the breakdown product of B6, which is P5 or something like that, okay? I can't remember, I'd have to look it up. So you have breakdown products. Your body should be breaking down B6 and making it into the active form, just like folate is broken down into the active form called methylated folate, okay? So folic acid needs to break down into the methylated version of folate to be active, okay? Or else if you don't have that ability to break it down, you build up folic acid. Same with B6. If you don't have an ability to break down B6 into the active form, then B6 is going to build up, right? It's going to build up. It's going to appear to build up. Yet, the body's still deficient. You have a whole bunch of B6, but you don't have the active form, P5. Now, why would the folate be low? Well, what if fungus and even H. pylori, what if they are thieves of your folate? And you know how doctors treat low folate, right? They just give folate. But maybe that's not the answer. The fungus is actually using our folate to make their DNA, to make themselves grow more. They're going to use the things we have in our body, and it's going to show up as red flags in our body. So we're going to be left with low folate, and we're probably going to show high B6. That could be a red flag that you have fungus. Okay? So if we don't have the folate, now how are we going to repair our DNA and our inflammation? All in all, you guys, I'm trying to explain that there is a lot more going on to our simple coronary artery disease thing, you know, that our topic of which we started out on today is talking about coronary artery disease and the cause. And one of them that we don't talk about, I don't think I've ever really talked about it, is fungal infection. I know I've talked about iron overload. I know I've talked about iron overload in the body and how iron overload feeds pathogens. I know that I have talked about that, okay? But if you want to connect the iron overload to H. pylori or candida, iron is just a breeding ground, okay? H. pylori, which is a bacteria, it loves iron. It loves iron. It will steal iron from your body. It loves it that much. And candida, fungus, in order to make the biofilm that wraps around the bacteria like H. pylori and protects it and hides it, it's like a little blanket, like a tent. Candida requires iron. We're giving all of this iron in processed foods and plants. So should we stop that? Should we maybe go to a carnivore diet? I don't know. A carnivore diet is high in heme iron, not non-heme iron. You see, our body, I believe our body knows that iron is feeding the germs. And our body says to itself, body, I think we need to have a lockdown, or else we would all be dead. All the bacteria would overgrow. all of the viruses would overgrow, all of the fungus would overgrow, all of the parasites would overgrow. Okay? If our body didn't have a protective mechanism that says, whoa, we got to lock down something here. We got to lock down. We got a chronic infection. And so we got to go on an iron lockdown. What is our body going to do? It's going to try to lock it up inside our tissues. And it's going to do that by raising hepcidin. Hepcidin is produced in your liver. When hepcidin goes high, it's going to block a transport mechanism. Okay? So if your body goes into lockdown, it's going to push all of the free iron into the tissues, usually the spleen and the liver. Okay? All tissues, but the liver is a big one. We can see it on our skin. Brown patches on our skin, that's iron. That's hemosiderin. That's iron. Like on your lower legs, all that brown, kind of a dirty reddish brown. Yeah, iron. So the body goes into this lockdown, right? Hepcidin's going to go high, so it's going to prevent the escape of that iron from our organs. When hepcidin is high, say this is the cell inside the liver, the hepatocyte, and there's got to be an elevator. There's got to be an elevator that gets the things from the inside to the outside, back into the bloodstream, so to speak, okay? There's a little elevator. He's called ferroportin, ferro iron portin, transporter. If hepcidin is too high, hepcidin will break ferroportin. He'll break the elevator. So that solidifies the trapping of that iron in your organs. Okay? So you're going to look on your labs like you have an iron deficiency, right? Your ferritin could be low. That's bound iron, right? Your transferrin could show some signs. Your actual serum iron could be low. And so what a doctor does, that doctors do best, they're going to give you a medicine. They're going to give you iron. You're going to get iron from your doctor, which is synthetic, non-heme iron that cannot be absorbed, sits in your gut, feeds the pathogens even more, pushes it into the tissues. Iron oxidizes, you guys. Iron causes free radicals. It is not only a food for pathogens, it gets incorporated. And because we have oxygen and water, iron and water and oxygen causes rusting. And rusting is rusting in our body, inside out. We're rusting our coronary arteries. We're rusting our cells. We're feeding pathogens. So what diet should you eat? A diet that has no processed foods, no sugars, no seed oils. I forgot to mention the polyunsaturated fatty acids as a cause of injury to the coronary arteries. I forgot to mention that one. Sugar, insulin, PUFAs, smoking, alcohol, iron, nanoplastics, microplastics, all of those things can injure the lining, injure cells in our body. Yesterday, we talked about glycation, all the sugar, glycating all of the proteins in our body, all the proteins in every cell. You basically have the Maillard reaction going on inside your body all the time. And you got iron oxidation going on all the time in your body. I know it sounds like you should live in a bubble, right? I don't know the answer. But I like to think through all of these things, why, we have tartar in our teeth. Our tartar in our teeth is full of bacteria and candida, the biofilm. And if you have tartar on your teeth, you likely have tartar plaque in your coronary arteries. Simply checking some labs, you don't even have to check for candida. Just get a B6, get a folate level, get a B12 level. You might be able to figure it out on your own. You've already probably known. You knew that you were sick. You knew that you had some sort of inflammation going on. But they'll just tell you it's normal. The doctor will say, it's just normal. You're getting older. They'll polypharmacy you. Your blood pressure's going up. Why is your blood pressure going up? Well, my insulin went up. Why'd your insulin go up? Food. Fake food. Steven says, wow, human biology and medicine is so very complicated. It feels like damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, I hear you. It gets so overwhelming at times, Stephen. The more and more I read, the thank you, RM. I appreciate you being here. I just now saw that you're here, and I truly appreciate RM as one of my blue shields, my moderators. So thank you very much. Edward says there is a fungus among us. I agree. It used to be just a cute little saying, there's a fungus among us, right? And it's so true. But we feed it. We're feeding everything. And in honesty, could it be just one big giant ecosystem that is in harmony? It's quite possible. Do we just go and try to destroy it? I don't know the answer. But I do think that we are slowly poisoning ourselves by what we're putting in our body. If you got diabetes, you're actually feeding it. By taking a medicine, you're just continuing the problem. You're putting sugar from the bloodstream. Either you're going to pee it out with some of the medications, like an SGLT2, like Jardiance. You're going to just pee it out. If you take metformin, you're just going to jam a cell full of sugar. So you're basically, the cell already told you it's resistant, right? You've already known that you're insulin resistant. And now you're diabetic. So your blood sugars are really high now. You're diabetic. Now you have a diagnosis. You have high blood sugar in your bloodstream. That should tell people that the cell was already full. If the cells don't take any more blood sugar in, they become resistant, close their doors. Do you simply give metformin, which the job of metformin is to jam more sugar into the cell? So you're forcing the cell to eat more than it doesn't want anymore. And then we call that blood sugar control. We're pushing it somewhere where it does not want to go, and we call that control. And your doctor pats themselves on the back and says, oh, good, your blood sugar is down. Never mind that your cells never want it anymore, and they told you so by closing their doors, and now blood sugar has nowhere else to go. So let's just give you a medicine. We'll either give you a medicine so you can pee it out and force your kidneys to work harder, or we'll just jam it into your cells. And then when those don't work, we'll just give you insulin, which, because your blood sugar is high in your bloodstream, your pancreas is already producing a lot of insulin. So you're just going to give more. And we're going to treat your alcoholism with more alcohol. At some point, you guys, you might feel like damned if you do, damned if you don't, but honestly, we are causing the problem. We really are, okay? We consume fake foods. We're consuming processed foods full of the iron, full of the sugar, carbs. We're feeding everything in your body. If you're okay with that, great. No one's telling you what to do. But if you're trying to connect the dots about, hey, you know what? If I got tartar, is it a possibility I could have arterial plaque in my heart? Absolutely. Okay? If there's fungus and bacteria in the tartar and there's heavy iron feeding them, those organisms are just going to go through the blood, find a place where the artery was damaged, stick to it, and build up. Plaque and tartar are full of calcium and the pathogenic DNA, the DNA from viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites, and fibrin, a blood clot. Iron that's in your processed foods and in your vitamins, check your vitamins. There's iron in there. We already have enough. You're taking too much. You just can't get to it. It's feeding all of the crap in your body. Iron is promoting the calcification. And the fungi, so if iron's promoting the calcification and the fungi and the candida are the master calcifiers, you got a problem going on. Should we stop feeding them? Should we feed less sugar, which means less glycation, which means less sticky areas for the tartar plaque to build up? Do we stop the nanoplastics? Though that can be an easy one, right? Can we stop smoking? Sure. Can we stop the alcohol? Absolutely. So we can do a lot. So maybe it's not damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Maybe it's something that's easy that we can do. E-Dog says it's all in your gut, your microbiome, and it's all connected. The gut is a site for our immune system, okay? And we are treating our gut all wrong. In fact, we're actually being told to feed the very bacteria, the very DNA that's feeding the pathogens. And you don't even know it because they put a bow around it and they say, get your plants, get your vegetables, get your fruit, get your get your fiber. Get your fiber. By definition, it's an indigestible plant. We are not made. We have no enzymes whatsoever to break them down. Okay? We cannot break down fiber. It goes out in our waste, which is otherwise known as poop. That is the waste. You're feeding bacteria on the way. And we've been told that that's our good bacteria. Really? I just got done talking to you about bacteria that love to eat iron. And I just got done talking to you about fungus that love to eat iron. And if it's sitting in your gut, those bacteria, they're having a heyday. You're talking about a buffet. And if they're a part of our tartar, and then that tartar is basically the same thing as arterial plaquing in our arteries, it's all connected. And you guys just want to just give some probiotics or some prebiotics, which is basically the fiber, and continue to feed the very existence of the pathogens. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, you guys. I don't know. And maybe E-Dog, you're right. Maybe they don't know. Or E-Dog, maybe the scientists do know and maybe they're just in too deep. You know, maybe they just can't turn around. They're just going to keep with the story, with the dogma. If the people believe that heart attacks are caused by LDL, it will relieve us from having to tell them that they got fungus and they're feeding it with iron and sugar and maybe some glutamine. I mean, who knows? It's a crazy situation that we're in. Angel, which one do I need to work on here? Help me out. Angel, which one is you think is spammy? I can't see it. See, I see all you guys' comments. You're saying, take this, take that. But why? You're just basically taking another plant. I mean, cocoa's a plant, Brad. The only thing that, people might be considering in the future, is something that could bind heavy metals, right? What could bind heavy metals? I mean, back a few years ago, we were talking a lot about zeolite. Zeolite is like a honeycomb type of an attracting molecule that traps heavy metals into its honeycomb, and then we send it out in waste, right? And you could say, well, that would work as long as you could tolerate the zeolite for a certain amount of time factor to get rid of heavy metals. There are people who will, let's keep going. There are people that will say, maybe if we stop taking in the non-heme iron and we take in heme iron from meat, we reduce the free iron in our gut and our mouth that feeds the calcification in the biofilm, like the tartar and the arterial plaquing. So maybe if we do switch over to a carnivore diet, what if we do take the zeolite? What if we take something like lactoferrin? That has been, big in the news, is taking lactoferrin, and lactoferrin will bind iron. I believe there are people who know what's going on and just can't get the word out. We're like a little pea in a big giant bin, and we're outnumbered. Okay. Absidy says, pretty sure my has a gluten reaction that is stopping her from absorbing iron. But what kind of iron? Yes, gluten causes leaky gut. And if you have an inflamed gut, you're not absorbing anything. You know that, right? It's getting out. It's in your skin. It's in your joints. It's in your organs. It's the gas and the bloating. And people shouldn't be eating gluten. There is nothing in our body that needs gluten to be able to function. There's no plant that we need in our body in order to function. It's plain and simple. We do not need it. And so, if your gut is inflamed and irritable, you're not only not absorbing iron, you're not absorbing all of the B vitamins, selenium, zinc, copper, anything with a positive charge. You're likely not taking in any, you're not absorbing. And if you are absorbing, it's very minute, okay? But I think we are missing the boat when we don't talk about iron. And doctors don't know how to look at the iron studies. They don't know how to look and evaluate the labs. And you know what? We actually have an AI that you could plug in. But you have to know how to talk to it. You really need to know how to talk to AI. Because if you really wanted to find out the contribution of tartar, fungus, H. pylori, what else have we been talking about? B6, B12, biofilms, calcium, and you wanted to know all of the intricate connect the dots AI to heart disease, How do you get there, right? You got to be able to have a little bit of knowledge so you can actually feed AI some information so he can or she can make a connection. And that can be difficult because you could just plug in your numbers and AI will read it according to a guideline, according to a reference range. And they could call you normal, but yet you have the symptoms. You could even plug in your symptoms. Say, here's my labs, here's my symptoms. I have gas and bloating, okay? AI is not going to tell you a connection between your plants eating high iron, non-heme iron, feeding H. pylori, causing gut problems like diarrhea and belching and bloating. Unless you have somebody in your corner that can walk you through these things, you might not know what to feed AI to get the answer. Plain and simple, okay? And I do not know all the answers, but yet I might be a little bit better at connecting a dot and plugging it into AI and getting more and more information, going deeper and deeper down a rabbit hole, if that's what you want to do. Jed says, do you take vitamins? Vitamins. No, I do not take vitamins. Do I take vitamins? No, I do not take vitamins. E-Dog says it's a spiritual battle. I agree. Yes, I don't even know where to go with that subject. And I see what you're saying. It's not just about what you eat, but who makes what we eat to get us addicted. So it is what we eat. And that relates back to spiritual, E-Dog, because we have food as another God. We are consuming things that make us feel good. We live in a world of prosperity and abundance. Everywhere we look, we have something to consume in our mouths to make us feel good, even if it's just momentarily. And there are people that sit in labs and make it so you just need one bite of the drug, one sniff of the drug up your nose, and they got you. They got you hooked. They've stimulated your dopamine, your opioid receptors in your brain, and they got you. They're called global flavorists. They sit and they doodle and they figure out just the right texture and just the right seduction and the succulence of that food and the salt and the sweet and all of it. There are people who willingly do this to you and go home and they sleep. And they might not sleep very well. And they probably are under terrible stress, sympathetic. I bet their testosterone levels are low if they're men. I bet that they are a setup for a heart attack because of their stress, because of their cortisol so high. They probably got diabetes or at least insulin resistance because their cortisol is so high all the time. They can't rest. Heart rate goes up, blood pressure goes up, put them on a blood pressure medicine, they get swelling, they take a diuretic, they have to go, because they can't hold their urine, they go to the urologist and get another medicine. Then they get orthostatic, they fall, they break a bone. Yeah, it's just one terrible thing. So they're really the victim of their own doing. And you know what they do it for? I need a job. I'm just so smart. It can't be hurting anybody. I need the money. I want to put my kids into school. I want to buy a bigger house and more cars. And yeah, that's called another God besides the one true God. That's paganism. Right? All of these things. Stephen asks, are there any foods, nutrients, supplements, medicines that reduce overall pathogens or inflammation in our body? Number one, you need to stop the inflammation diet. The inflammation diet, no matter what you think, is a diet full of processed food, seed oils, and sugar. Those three things come from none other than plants. 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 So doctor, are you telling us not to eat plants? I'm not telling you to do anything. You asked me to how to reduce inflammation and pathogens. And I just told you. So what does that leave us with? It leaves you with animals that can survive on the plants because they have a body that can consume it. And then you can consume the plants as long as it's filtered through that animal. They've cleaned it up for you. They've made it so hunky-dory for you. All you have to do is eat the animal. Eating the animal that eats the plants. It's the safest way. And then how do you get rid of the current ones? Well, you're going to be starving them because there's no sugar. There's no seed oils in animals, except for if you're eating a whole bunch of grain-fed animals and you're eating their fat, yep, there's a strong possibility you're going to get some seed oils. Not as many as if you put it on a spoon and put it on your salad or drank it. Okay? Animals would be the only way to go. But what do I do for variety? Have 2 types of animals on your plate, or 3, or whatever it takes. But I hear your wheels going around and say, but I really like, I don't care what you like, right? It doesn't affect me. You're the one feeding your pathogens. You're the one feeding the cancers. You, not me. I'm not telling you what to do. I never want to do that. God gave you free will. Why would I want to take it away? Okay? Yeah, E-Dog, people do perish because they lack knowledge. I can agree with you somewhat. But the human race in general, I feel, is very trustworthy. And when we live in a world that is run or owned by Satan and his minions, we are outnumbered. We're putting our trust in Satan, the father of lies. And the father of lies has done really good. His little minions are working overtime. How can I get E-Dog to fail? How can I get E-Dog to fail? Because he's a problem. He's on that Dr. J website. He's on that Dr. J live stream right now, and he's telling all the people. I don't like that. So the more E-Dog talks, the more tribulation and trouble E-Dog is going to experience. But it might be worth it. I say it is. We're exposing Satan and all of his lies. And the minions don't like it, so they're going to try to shut us up. And they're going to tell you your disease, there's nothing else you can do. You got cancer? Take this poison. It kills every cell, but we hope that you can survive. It'll kill the bad ones. It'll kill the pathogens. Just take some chemo. The one I have to put a hazmat suit on in order to protect myself from touching it or exposing myself so I don't die. So Anne asks, changing the subject, Anne asks, is there anything to take for osteoporosis? Well, how did you get osteoporosis? Obviously, you didn't give what your bones needed. Calcium, protein, especially protein. And you caused things in the bone so the nutrients couldn't be absorbed. So maybe all of the things I just was talking about, Anne, you've done to your body, and now you're wondering, how can I get it back? How can I start building bone? Can you start building osteoblasts, building up bone? I would say you need to start with the protein, and the protein is going to come from animals. I would say that you need to do calcium. But then again, if you do too much calcium, is that feeding the candida that you have growing in your body? So you really need to get rid of a sugar, right? So that leaves Anne with a carnivore diet again. And did I get your thinking cap going and you know what to do now? Weight-bearing exercises, lift weights. Anytime your muscles, if you have muscles, you're gonna have to start lifting weights in order to build muscle. But anytime your muscle contracts and releases and contracts and releases, it's tugging on the bone. Wherever it's connected, it's tugging on that bone. And that tugging is causing strengthening of your bone. Protein, I guess calcium, I guess vitamin D, and weight-bearing exercises, lifting weights. Kayla asked a good question, and we talked, Kayla, I don't know if you were here yesterday, we talked about fasting. And she's asking about the Daniel fast. Is it a biblical diet? I don't know if it's a biblical diet. Did Daniel do it? Daniel did do it. Was there a reason Daniel did it? Read scripture. Is fasting appropriate? I think so. Because basically when you're fasting, you're not eating crapola. You are basically limiting the amount of crap that you are putting in your body. You just stop eating. That's going to at least help some of your cells heal or repair. When you don't eat, you don't have inflammation. When you do eat, no matter what it is, you have inflammation. Even a carnivore diet is going to give a little bit of inflammation. Even if you just ate meat, you're going to have some inflammation. The very fact you put something foreign in your body, we have to feed ourselves. I'm not saying that, but there's better ways to do it than others. But you have to first undo everything, all the dogma, all of the things that you've been fed, all the experiences that told you saturated fat is plugging your arteries and everybody should eat plants. Eat your vegetables, get 7 servings a day and eat small frequent meals. But I'm hungry. I'm just gonna grab a snack. Of what? Oh, I just might have a donut or a candy bar, a little piece of chocolate. I might have some crackers to get me by. You're basically feeding all of the inflammation and pathogens and things in your body. So not eating would be Kayla's answer, right, Kayla? If I just don't eat, my cells can go through mitophagy and autophagy, and we can maybe get them back. We can maybe get the healing back. Maybe those bad cells, bad DNA, bad things can just die off and new cells will grow. Maybe. Yeah, I would agree, 1910. We try to twist the Bible to match what we want it to say. And in general, fasting or the foods that were talked about in the Bible, you know what? I have people try to twist the Bible on me all the time. And I'll say, you're actually using that as an argument. You're not really defending what my argument is. You're actually going to twist and make the Bible sound, I could do it. I could tell you that the Bible says only eat meat. I could tell you that. But I would be twisting the Bible scripture to make it fit my dogma. Okay? And the same thing goes for the plant people. The plant people will twist the Bible to make it fit their dogma. When maybe just in general, when people fasted, it was for a spiritual cleansing and not so much that it was, I'm just going to eat plants or I'm just going to eat animals. But I've built a case this morning about why people are sick. And there's not enough carnivores out there, meat-eating people, that we could do a experiment on and watch them over time. They're now starting to come out of the woodwork. But look at all of the people who have had a heart attack, who have rheumatoid arthritis, who have illness. They just have every single chronic disease. And look at what they eat or have eaten in their lifetime. It's not just, oh, My goodness, she was eating the standard American diet and then she turned carnivore 4 years ago and ended up with a heart attack. The carnivore diet did not cause the heart attack, but the buildup from the previous 40 years, yeah, that was the linchpin. There was no amount of carnivore that was going to turn back the hands of time. Okay? If you people are worried about, there was a question just that came up just not too long ago, do I take vitamins? I think if you are a person who has buildup of calcium, tartar, heart, you might be low in vitamin K. Or you just need more vitamin K2, okay? I don't know. Would that be an option for Malea, Dr. J, to say, you know what? Vitamin K2 might be in your best interest right now. Maybe to help drain some of that calcium and put it back into our bones. So maybe the osteoporosis question, maybe they do vitamin K2. I don't know the right answer, you guys. I wish I did. Yeah, Jack, I would agree with you. Jack says, I think blood chemistry is so different from person to person. It's a possibility. But in general, our bodies were made the exact same way. Okay? I don't know how somebody could say that God made, well, I'm not even going to get into that part, but I feel for you and I understand why you say it. Georgia says, I like biscuits and gravy. Well, you can like them. It could bring you joy for an hour, and then you must enjoy being sick or developing sickness, because that's what biscuits and gravy will do. E-Dog likes bread. Eat the bread. Nobody's telling you not to eat the bread. It's not natural. You think it's natural. It's made from a man who made the seed to make the plant. E-Dog loves pasta. That's fine. Eat your pasta. I get it. I like to give names. The gallbladder I call, he sometimes. Yeah, it's just my lingo. So I see that you're trying to, AI is math and a computer. I understand what you're saying. I understand. I'm looking I got a lot of comments and very little questions. So I'm just trying to scope through. If you guys got a question, put a question mark in front of it so I can pick it out quickly. Brad asks, what do I eat? I eat some form of, for most every day, I eat some form of red meat and eggs and butter. I eat maybe a little square of cheese. I eat some cottage cheese every once in a while, a couple tablespoons, sometimes before I go to bed. I eat drink a couple ounces of heavy cream. I eat sardines, maybe 3-4 times a week. I eat liver 3 times a week. That would be about it. I might take a couple bites of chicken every once in a while, a couple bites of tuna every once in a while. That's about it. Jack says, aren't blueberries high in anti-inflammatory things? Sure, as long as you can absorb them, because the things that are in the plants actually block the absorption of your inflammatory antioxidants. So, and antioxidants, for instance, is vitamin C, vitamin E, NAD, NADH. Those are things that are used during the antioxidant pathway. But if we are blocking all of those things with the chemicals that are in the plant, like tannins and all of those things, then you're basically just eating man-made food. Blueberries were never meant to be sweet, and they're not giant like they are today. I mean, pretty soon the blueberries are going to look like grapes, and the grapes are going to look like apples, and you'll eat them. You'll even buy the ones without the seeds because, well, who wants to mess with those seeds? So you're eating more genetically modified stuff. Right. E-Dog says the soil is not as good. I would agree. Our soil sucks. We don't even have a topsoil anymore. The farmers have basically ruined the land, and they do it only because they need the money. It started out as something really, really good, and then it ended up being, I have no topsoil, so I have to spray more and more chemicals to get the things to grow, to feed the animals, to feed the people. And then they'll say, but if you didn't have us, hey, you know what? I have farmers for neighbors, okay? But if you didn't have us, the world would starve. Well, no, if we didn't have you doing what you did in the first place, we could have raised animals on that land and made a regenerative. And we could have helped everybody. But you say, but it's too late and you need the money. And then the government will subsidize you. And you just can't turn away. How long would it take you to turn things around? Could take 3 or 4 years. And by that time, farmers would go broke. They would go broke. So what are we going to do? We're going to subsidize the farmers so we can, but the people don't want to subsidize. They want the plants. They want the fake foods. Now you're going to go against big pharma and big food. I don't know. This world, it's crazy, right? Yeah, Saint, maybe that is the way. Yeah, reality, I agree with you. Thanks, Polly, I appreciate it. I'm trying to look for questions and I'm reading your comments. JBG, when bodybuilders overeat to gain and build muscle, how does that affect your organs and heart? Well, the foods that they are choosing to eat, for the most part, JB, is they are consuming carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, and they're consuming them all day long. So when they consume carbohydrates all day long, their blood sugar never has a chance to come down, which means their insulin never has a chance to come down, which means their mTOR never has a chance to come down. mTOR is a growth hormone, or a growth chemical, just like insulin is a growth hormone. So things are always growing. Organs are growing, cancer is growing, everything is growing when you have constant insulin and constant mTOR production. That means if they're constantly eating carbs, and they got high blood sugar, high insulin, high mTOR, that means they don't have autophagy. So now their mitochondria are damaged. Their cells are damaged. Eventually they get chronic diseases. They get heart defects. They get congestive heart failure. That's a muscle. That muscle's growing with insulin, with their food, with their mTOR, always on, never relaxed. They're always eating. Their organs are dying faster than anyone. They even take insulin. So they actually speed up their insulin resistance, which causes diabetes, which causes coronary artery disease. They don't know what they're doing because they love muscle. They love muscle. And on top of that, they'll take drugs. They'll take steroids. They don't know what they're doing to themselves, JB. They're affecting every single organ. They're never allowing cells to repair. They're in constant growth mode. And they're dying faster than their comrades. Did that answer your question? I don't like that kind of language, SK. So if you want me to answer a question, you can ask a question, but that isn't the way to talk to people who are online listening. I'm looking for questions, you guys. Sorry if it's, yeah, you're welcome, JB. Thank you for your question. I appreciate it. So Shepherd says, that's why I only eat one meal a day, about 2 pounds of beef. That's 80-20. So 80-20, that's nearly a 1-to-1 ratio of fat to protein. So Shepherd's got, I mean, it sounds like you're doing well. Are you doing well? Have your diseases reversed? OMAD, you know, eating one meal a day, you're lowering blood sugar no matter what. You're lowering insulin. You're lowering mTOR. You're allowed to go into autophagy. You know, AMPK is able to elevate and cause autophagy to occur. You're also getting mitophagy, which is the mitochondria repairing themselves or dying off, and then, you know, more new mitochondria are being made. So a lot of things are occurring when we don't eat. But is Shepherd, you know, a guy or a girl? If it's a girl, you know, and she only eats one meal a day, girls are notorious under eaters. So then you don't have enough protein, you don't get enough essential fats, and then that person's just really causing some harm. So you got to be really strategic when you say, I'm going to fast, or I'm going to just do one meal a day. You got to be strategic. You got to make sure that you're feeding your body adequate nutrients, or else you're just like, you know, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Common Sense says, hi doc, I am disabled woman, can find nothing to relieve crippling chronic pain from OA, osteoarthritis, serious injuries, fibro, which I'm guessing is fibromyalgia, a diagnosis of exclusion, ruptured discs, etc. I am online instead of at church due to pain. Okay. So I don't know, Common Sense, you know, your history. My heart goes out to you with all of these concerns. I would ask, have you talked to your doctor about these concerns? Have you been looking into it? Have you tried an elimination diet? There's a lot of things that we don't know your medical history, and it's so hard to give you advice or to give you information that would help you. But I think just listening to this live stream, I think you'll get a pretty good idea, right? Polymath, you bring up a good point. Your dog won't even touch your bread. So my Tucker was always a carnivore before I even knew what the word carnivore meant. Granted, he was 16 years old, almost 17, so 16 and a half, and he ate carnivore, right? Go lay down. Go lay down. So I could set a hamburger down, and I would open it up, open face, and there would be French fries down there. And my little Tucker would only eat the beef and leave the rest. There was something special about that dog. I will tell you, he was definitely my soul, and he taught me so much. So Polymath, I would totally agree with you there. A question, trigs below HDL with high LDL. I would say that here's a red flag for me. When somebody says my trigs are low and my HDL is high, most carnivore teachers, and I'm guessing you're carnivore, would teach you that you're fine, that it doesn't matter about your high LDL. But what I would suggest to you, just to be cautious, is get a breakdown of your LDL particles. Get an NMR, a nuclear magnetic resonance, advanced lipid test, and see what type of LDLs you have. Is it possible that your LDLs are small and dense. I know it sounds odd because you would think that your trigs are low, your HDL's high, you should have low, small, dense LDLs. And for the most part, that's probably 90% true. But you could be the one off, and your LDLs could be small and dense. And that is a red flag for coronary artery disease. Those small, dense LDLs are oxidized. They are oxidized LDLs, and they're sticky. And if you have an injury in your coronary artery lining, you could get plaquing, buildup, and damage even more with those small, dense LDLs. You need to look into it. How would you have gotten increased amounts of small, dense LDLs? Maybe eating too much saturated fat. If you are consuming too much saturated fat, your body can't handle all the saturated fat. So your LDLs don't recirculate. The liver is full of your LDLs, the saturated fat, carrying the fat and the cholesterol. It's full. So the liver's receptors don't take in any more LDLs. So the LDLs are allowed to live in the bloodstream longer. So they dump out all of their content and they become small and dense. So your small dense LDLs could be elevated. And it's just the way you were made. Your liver can't tolerate as much LDL as somebody else's. Somebody else could eat 200 grams of saturated fat in butter and ribeye steaks, and you can't. Your liver can't take in as much of the saturated fat. So what do? Lower your saturated fat, which will lower your small dense LDLs. What can you do for an added fat? You need more monounsaturated fat. Crazy, but true. Would I give you olive oil? No, I think it's fake. I would never put an oil in my body of any kind. But you could put an avocado in your body, even though it's a plant, which I don't particularly like. But in this case, you have to do something. It's either a heart attack or eat an avocado. I mean, right? Okay? Get rid of some of the saturated fat. Now, this is not everybody, you guys. This is not standard protocol. But if you have high LDL and your carnivore coach says don't worry about it, just worry a little bit about it and go get tested, okay? I'm not big on the LDL bandwagon, but in this case, you really just need to find out, okay? Just find out. Dr. B says, hello, great news. Dr. B, I think you're in Florida, is that right? Great news this week. Most peptides previously banned will now be taken off the banned list. So now you can go to your peptide doctors and get your peptides. Polymath is on carnivore diet and lifts heavy. So great. Just go get an advanced lipid test. If your doctor won't order it and you are in the United States, I can order it for you. Just email me at IronLadyDoc@AOL.com. IronLadyDoc. It might cost you $20, but it's well worth it, okay? I don't know how much it costs, but yeah, just get it checked. Get an advanced lipid test and find out what your LDLs look like. They should be all large and fluffy, but there are outliers, you guys, and you don't want to be an outlier, okay? People who don't eat carbs don't necessarily get small, dense LDLs, except the person who can't tolerate saturated fat, high doses of saturated fat. Jack's taking iodine because there's nothing left in the soil. I would agree. We're all probably low on iodine. Oh, geez, I don't, Kayla. Kayla's asking where the best place is to buy meat. What do you guys think? What are good places to buy meat? I don't have any suggestions, okay? Dr. B says most docs can order them, the advanced lipid test, but won't. They probably don't know how to interpret them, so they don't want to look dumb, so they won't order them. And it sometimes takes it out of their pool of money, Dr. B. If they're in a corporation, they pride themselves on not ordering stuff so they can save money, right? And you're right. They just want to put everybody on a statin. It's very short-sighted, I would agree. Phoenix asks, I thought bodybuilders needed protein. Why do they eat carbohydrates? Because they think that carbohydrates will make them grow bigger muscles. Do the muscles grow bigger? They do. Is it the right kind of big that they want? I don't think so. When you increase your carbs, okay, you increase blood sugar, which increases insulin, and insulin drives the energy, the carb, the sugar into the cells, even muscle cells, even liver cells. So you basically look like you have big muscles, but it's Wagyu beef. You have fatty muscle, fatty liver, fatty heart, fatty organ disease because of all the crap they eat. They think they're getting bigger. They look big on the scale. Their muscles are all big and full of water. And you think, oh my gosh, they're humongous and they're so big and strong. And yep, they got Wagyu beef. When they start dieting down for a show, all of that fat, because they lower their carbohydrates, right? Which lowers their blood sugar, which lowers their insulin. So they're burning off because they got the lifting, right? So the muscle is the sink for all of the sugar until the sink is full. And the fat cells are gonna get bigger. And so they got Wagyu beef. When they start dieting down, they feel like they're shrinking. They're not really shrinking. They're just getting rid of the fat that's in their muscles. So it looks like they're leaner and they're smaller because they're used to being big and puffy, full of drugs and water and insulin and all kinds of things. So yeah, they need protein. Everybody needs protein for muscles to grow. Diane had a chow chow with a black tongue. That's odd. You know, I heard a vet talk about that dogs that if they had black on the roof of their mouth, they were healthier. Tell me, has anybody ever heard that? Jack says, my doctor says a digital prostate exam isn't necessary and all you need is the PSA blood work. Do you have any thoughts on it? My thought is a digital exam, that means a finger exam. So if I put my finger up the butthole and feel the male prostate, I'm looking for the texture, I'm looking for nodules, I'm looking for size, I'm looking for things that might not feel normal, okay? If I were to do a digital exam and then get the PSA blood test is going to be abnormal. Because anytime you stimulate the prostate gland, it's going to secrete enzymes. It's going to be active. Go lay down. Okay, so you have to be very careful with that. You also don't want an inexperienced doctor. If an inexperienced doctor means they've only done 10 digital exams, it's not worth it, Jack. So your doctor is basically saying, I haven't done enough of those to know what I'm talking about or doing, so I'm just not gonna do it and I'm gonna get your PSA. I mean, does that sound logical? If a doctor is not seeing a whole bunch of men and doing prostate exams, their technique and their skills are not very good. So you might not want them doing it. You have to go by your symptoms. Your urine, you go by, blood, never, if you have blood coming from your rectum, you need it checked ASAP, okay? I don't care if you think it's just a hemorrhoid, just get it checked. Just get it checked, okay? So Jack, I can't answer for your doctor. There are other doctors who do prostate exams 10 times a day, and they're very skilled and they can feel, and that's, to be like a gynecologist doing breast exams. If a gynecologist does one breast exam a month, do you want that person doing your breast exam? Because they're gonna miss something, likely. And then you go, but I feel it, it's right here. No, I can't feel it. It's a skill. And so maybe your doctor's telling you something. No, I'm from the United States, Blake. I live in Iowa. Okay. Yeah, 1910, thank you. I appreciate that. If you guys find this information is helpful, if it's educational, share it with a friend, share it with a coworker, share it with your family. Click the subscribe. Check in, how you can help me is just check and see if you're subscribed. I would appreciate that. Hit the follow button, okay, on YouTube and Instagram. Common sense, I understand that you're going through a lot, and I would probably talk to your doctors in regards. It's something that I can't deal with here on the live stream, but thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. Seasoned troll, is it bad to go lay down? Is it bad to eat French fries fried in peanut oil? Well, I would ask you why you're eating French fries. This concerns me because I need. Seasoned says they need fries with the burger or they won't eat the burger. Seasoned, I can't really answer your question because I think you need some more knowledge. If you are okay with eating the French fries, then you should be okay with eating the peanut oil, okay? Just so you know. And if you need the peanut oil and the fries in order to eat the burger, then that's up to you. So I don't know what you're concerned about. You shouldn't be concerned at all. You've already made a decision that you're going to eat the fries in order to eat the burger because that's what you need. So I'm sorry, but I don't know if there's anybody here that could help you. No, you're welcome, Polymath. You're quite welcome. Kayla says, so can you say where you buy your meat? I buy it from all over, including the grocery store. I used to have a particular place. I was buying it from Wild Fork Foods, and they stopped shipping. I can't think of the place. It's in Texas now where I'm consuming my meat right now, and I can't think of the name. If you email me, I can send it to you. And it's good. I think it's good meat. I mean, at this point, how do you know? Season says, why can't I use carbs instead of protein for muscle growth if carbs spike insulin and insulin is anabolic? Okay, so why can't I use carbs instead of protein? There are no essential carbohydrates. None. Zero. Goose egg. There are no essential carbohydrates, but you do have essential amino acids, which is from protein, and you have essential fatty acids. So I think that would be a surefire way of eating just carbs, making blood sugar, getting insulin, getting diabetes, and dying from no amino acids and no essential fatty acids. So Seasoned, it sounds like a great way to continue if you want to die early. So, oh, thank you, Phoenix, for subscribing. I appreciate that. Donna says, is monk fruit sweetener better than regular sugar? What would be the difference? Monk fruit is glucose and fructose. Regular sugar is sucrose, which is glucose and fructose. Is there a difference? Oh, Sylvia says she uses Aldi. I've had meat from Aldi. Yeah, that's an option, right? And if it's grain-fed and it's meat, eat it. You can't afford grass-fed and organic, just eat the meat at the grocery store. It'll be fine. You guys, it'll be fine. It's better than eating processed foods, seed oils, and sugar. All right. Dr. B says local farmers are the best source of good beef or any type of meat if you have that option. Okay. Are there any other questions here? I'm scanning for questions. I think Sylvia says cut the fat off if it's not grass-fed. It doesn't matter, Sylvia. with a cow, they're not taking in the amounts of omega-6 that you're thinking of. So you're going to cut the fat off. So now you're not getting essential fatty acids. I think we're going too deep, Sylvia. Now, you have to think about, you just said grass-fed, I'm guessing beef, right? The cow has a multi-chambered stomach, all right? The multi-chambered stomach allows the cow to break down the fatty acids and the proteins, make proteins for us. If it was a monogastric animal that was grain-fed, I would be more cautious. A monogastric is a pig, a chicken, a turkey. Those are monogastric animals. If they're eating grain, I probably would not eat their skin and their fat. But if it was a multi-chambered, polygastric animal, like what they're called ruminant animals, bison, buffalo, sheep, lamb, deer, cow, I'm okay with eating their fat, okay? Seasoned is afraid of added hormones in certain meats because I feel they worsen my gynecomastia, male boobs, when it's added estrogen hormones of the animal. I would disagree that is actually causing your gyno. I want you to think about something. When we as doctors give hormones to our patients, we have to give them on a continuous basis. A continuous basis in order for them to work. If I was giving you testosterone, I at least have to dose it once a week, or else it will run out of your body. In females, I have to give them daily birth control, or they won't have they could get pregnant. I would have to put it into a pellet, and the pellet is time released, and every single day it's giving the hormones. What I'm trying to tell you is the hormones do not stick in your body. They're in and out quickly, all right? So when a farmer goes to slaughter, do you think they're going to waste hormones into the cow that's going to slaughter, giving it within a week of slaughter or even 2 weeks before slaughter? Are there laws that prevent the amount of hormones they can give right up until slaughter? What about antibiotics? Same thing. So I think when we, as doctors, give an antibiotic to somebody, you take it for 10 days and it's out of your system at most in 3 weeks, okay? It doesn't stay in your system. So I think you're worried about something that you shouldn't be worried about. It's just that might be overboard, okay? And I don't think that is what's causing your problems, but you know what? Seasoned, I could be totally wrong. And I'm good with being wrong. But I think you're maybe worrying about the tiny little things when you maybe need to look at what else is causing your gyno, okay? For men, aromatization is the biggest culprit, okay? And if there's any body fat, like fat around the belly, that belly fat on a man is holding estrogen. That fat on a man, and it's the same for a woman, but that fat on a man around his belly is like an ovary. And that ovary is aromatizing his testosterone to estrogen. It had nothing really to do with the cow, but it had everything to do with what was causing fat on his belly, i.e. carbohydrates, okay? Carbohydrates are sugar, raises insulin. Insulin causes fat cells to get fatter. Then those fat cells act like a little ovary, and they aromatize his testosterone to estrogen. In a female, that's normal. We want ovaries to aromatize testosterone to estrogen, or else we would end up with PCOS, everybody. Okay? All right. Let's see. Okay. I'm trying to read through see if I see a lot of comments. Yeah, I know. So much information, learning a lot. I know, Polymuth, I truly feel overwhelmed at times when I'm reading. And actually, when I have these live streams, it's so good for me because I start actually, as I'm talking to you, I'm actually saying out loud so I can relearn it. So I'm like talking to myself as I'm talking to you, which I really am talking to myself, but I'm trying to share the information, but it helps me walk through it and try to connect the dots. So I'm talking out loud and connecting the dots as as I'm talking. So it's really good. Season says, so maybe it's the rice. Well, quite possible. Rice is also full of arsenic and other heavy metals that I'm not sure that you want to consume, but maybe you do. That's a possibility. That's fine. So you're going to cut out the rice and see. I would say, what other carbohydrates are you doing? Do you have the belly fat seasoned? Why don't you let everybody know how much belly fat you have on you? And that could explain why you have the gyno. Oh my gosh, Dynamis, absolutely. The clothes that you are wearing have toxins in them. Polyester is, I mean, we have, there's bromide. Bromide is a huge chemical in our clothes. It's in our carpet. It's in our furniture. It's everywhere. Bromide is a halide, and it's a flame retardant. This is just one chemical. I'm just bringing up one. Bromide. And bromide being a halogen, a halide, sorry, being a halide, it will block other halides, especially iodine. We need iodine in our body for our thyroid, among other things. So if we are intoxicated with bromide, we're blocking the iodine receptor, so everybody ends up being low in iodine. Thus, people are taking iodine as a supplement. Okay? So yeah, bromide, huge halide chemical that's in everything. Yes, Nancy, oatmeal does contain pesticides. Every plant that is grown contains pesticides and herbicides and insecticides, all of it. You're consuming all of that. Hale says, I'm 51, 6'2", 190. So you're lean, I'm guessing. Drink daily. Like, drink alcohol daily? Eat organic, homegrown beef, deer, bear, 80% of your diet. Good job. Yes, Jack, iodine supplement is a good antidote to bromide toxicity. Absolutely. Yes, polymath blocked iodine receptors. So then the iodine can't. So bromide actually has a higher affinity for the iodine receptor than the iodine. Okay? Fluoride too. If you're consuming fluoride, it's blocking iodine receptors. Bromide blocking them. Chloride blocking them. What's all of that? It's in our water. Okay. All right, you got, seaweed is a great source of iodine, but then you're taking in other heavy metals from the sea. So I don't know, maybe you should just stick with an iodine supplement like Lugol's iodine. I don't know. The salt, even if you had iodized salt, Hale, you're not getting enough iodine. By the time the air hits the salt, remember, salt is processed. Most salt is processed. It's processed white salt. It's been bleached and got chemicals. And then they add iodine to it, and they call that iodized salt, expecting that you're going to get enough iodine. You might get enough to prevent a goiter, but you won't get enough for your thyroid to function adequately. And so your doctor's saying that you're only using pink Himalayan salt and you need iodized salt. I mean, that's a joke. They don't know that the iodine, once it hits the air, it basically evaporates. So there's no iodine in iodized salt. Crazy that, especially if the salt shaker's been sitting on the cupboard with it open and not in a bottle. I don't know, you guys. Sometimes I see the ignorosis, the condition of ignorance. It's so deep that I can hardly take it. Seasoned Troll says, I'm 16% body fat now. Is that too high for estrogen conversion? That's a good question. I mean, 16, you would think that you should be good, but again, it's in the fat. So check. I mean, is your 16% body fat all around your inner tube of your stomach? Then yeah, that's enough for estrogen, for aromatization. Yeah, Nancy, I agree with the pink salt. I do not eat pink salt anymore. I actually, because of the heavy metals, there's a website that you can check. I think the top 3 right now is Baja Gold, Jacobson's, and one other. I think it might be Diamond or something like that. I can't remember. But you need to check and get a really good salt. That's okay, Nancy. That's how we learn. You know, you just learned about the pink salt. You know now not to buy it from those areas because they add, the pink is the color and they're adding heavy metals to make that color. Jack says most sea salts contain micro and nanoparticles. Yeah, the plastics. I agree. We don't, I mean, again, we just have to do the best we can, right? You never stop learning. Absolutely, Nancy. You can never stop learning. You just got to keep going. This is a journey. I do not know it all. I do not even remotely can admit I do know more than I know yesterday. How about that? What I learned today, I know more than I do yesterday. I might not remember it yet and keep it in my arsenal, but it's a constant journey, and I'm on this journey with you. I want us to learn together. I don't want derogatory comments. I don't want fighting. If you want to be a plant person, be a plant person. If you want to be a carnivore, be a carnivore. You know, I would say I'm neither one, to be perfectly honest. I mean, if a true carnivore doesn't eat dairy, okay? And if you're a plant person and you have one egg, then you're not a true plant person. So all this bickering is just one more way to divide us, and that's crazy thinking. We have free will, and if you want to eat plants knowing that it causes a whole bunch of illness and inflammation and blocks your absorption of B vitamins and amino acids, if you want your $25 ribeye steak to be worth about $3, put some asparagus with it. Okay? If you have enough money that you can eat 3 times that much ribeye so you can fight the asparagus off, that's great. If you want to boil your asparagus for 20 minutes before you put it beside your ribeye steak, even better. That at least could boil out some of the oxalates and phytates that's blocking the absorption of B vitamins and iron and calcium and selenium and zinc and amino acids. You go for it. I just think if you were armed with all the information, then you can make a really good decision. Okay? Just my thoughts on it. Kayla says at 74, what weight dumbbell would I start out using? The one you can pick up, okay? And I don't know what exercise you're doing, but you know, you're not going to be able to tricep extend more than, you know, a 5-pound, you know, a 20-pound dumbbell when you can curl a 20-pound dumbbell. I don't know. Okay. So I don't know what body part. So I don't know what dumbbell you should pick up. But what I do think you should do is get a trainer. Get somebody who's a good coach who can show you some exercises and you can work on them. And then you don't go to the trainer for a while and you're like, leave the nest, baby bird leaves the nest, and then baby bird might need to come back and talk to trainer again and learn some more techniques. You need education. Watch YouTube videos. Season, thank you for the confidence. I appreciate that. And I only know how to explain things to you guys because I need that way of explaining it to me. I'm explaining this to myself as I'm explaining it to you guys. If I talk in a whole bunch of big terms and all of these pathways and all of this and that, I can't understand. I really can't. It would take me a lot longer to be able to share this information if I had to look up every complete detail, and I would have to look it up. But if I know the generalizations, then I can help you guys walk through and make good decisions, okay? No, eggs are not bad. And I don't know where, I don't know about eggs having a bunch of estrogen, okay? I'd have to look that up, Hale. And so no, eggs are not bad. They are complete protein. They're 100% bioavailable. Would I choose a pasture-raised egg versus a, pent up factory egg? Absolutely, okay? But eggs are 100% bioavailable. They're the only, you think about it, a chickie can live outside mama and still live inside its egg. The egg is outside mom. It's not getting any nutrition from mom after that egg has been laid. So that chickie is growing inside its own shell that's porous so it can get oxygen and water, if it, so that shell is just enough porous that it getting some, diffusion of gases, and it's eating the yolk. The yolk is the most important part of the whole egg, and that chickie is growing big and strong from the yolk. So, yeah. Remember, you could connect the estrogen, I'm guessing this is how you're connecting the estrogen. Since a chicken is a monogastric animal, if it's been fed hormones, it could be higher in estrogen. But what I'm trying to say, I think the hormones are completely out of the animal before it goes to slaughter, okay? Farmers are not going to waste precious money on food or hormone supplements or antibiotics when they know that their little animal is going to go to slaughter, okay? They're just not going to do it. It's a waste of money. And that hormone is in and out of their body. Johnny, I can't answer your question, but I would definitely look up how to make a complete protein. I don't know what vegetarian food that you're consuming or what even constitutes vegetarian to you. But if it's just meat that you can't eat, what about eggs? What about fish? When you say meat, what's your definition of meat? To me, it's red meat is meat. Let's see. Yeah, and I think I agree with you, but I would have to study that on the color of the eggs. But I think you're absolutely right. Let's see. Is there a question in here? No. Shelly, you're very welcome. And Shelly, did you have a question way back and I did not answer it? Donna says, is fasting healthy? I think so. But we need to be very cautious with knowing our medications, knowing our diagnoses, knowing, there's so many things. Before I would start fasting, I would talk to your doctor or consult with somebody and find out. Remember, if you're on diabetes meds and you're on blood pressure meds and you think I'm going to go on a water fast for 3 days and still take your medicine, you could get hypoglycemic and die. You could lower your blood pressure, fall and hit your head and die. So you just don't jump into fasting if you're not well aware of your medications and diseases, chronic medical conditions and medications. You got to be very careful. Don't remember, this is not medical advice. This is for information purposes only. And you need to, I'm a doctor coach. I work with your doctor, you and your doctor. I'm trying to give you information so you can go back and try to talk logically with your doctor. It might be hard. They might dismiss you. Steven says, should the average American trust their healthcare providers? If we have to ask that question, we're in a sad state. It seems like it's a crapshoot finding a primary care physician that's not going to overprescribe, etc. That's why, Stephen, you need to be your own informed consent advocate. You need to be your own doctor. Who's the best doctor? The one that looks back at you in the mirror. If you have a finger that needs to be sewn back on, you go to the doctor. But you need to educate yourself. And honestly, the questions that I get from you guys that are online right now are questions that show much more knowledge and education than I experienced talking to doctors. Okay? I have read articles by doctors that would make you guys giggle. And they are looked at as experts. I have to read their continuing medical education. I think to myself, this world is in a whole lot of hurt with the information they are providing to people and the fake studies that are going on to convince you, to feed your cognitive dissonance. If I tell you enough that your LDL is going to cause a heart attack, you're going to believe it. And then if somebody else comes in and says, hey, it's not LDL, you, because of cognitive dissonance, fighting yourself, most people cannot see it. They cannot dump out their own experiences and accept any new experiences. It is a very difficult situation. The people like you guys listening, when you jump out of the matrix and you see things, you can't unsee it. Once you see things, you can't unsee it. And you feel like you are so full of information, and why doesn't anybody else see it? Steven's probably saying, I can't believe that people don't see this. Why doesn't my doctor see it? All they know is a recipe. High LDL, statin. High blood pressure, amlodipine, ACE inhibitor. Diabetes, Jardiance, GLP. Obesity, Wegovy. It's ingrained in them. Make a diagnosis, give a medication. That's why you need not need medications. Diet, exercise, sun, sleep, low stress, happy people around you, God and praying, standing barefoot on the ground, all of those things probably better than your PCP, okay? Get rid of the disease so you don't need a diagnosis. Oh, you're welcome, Shelley. Nancy, I didn't say not trusting, just having discernment. Have discernment. You need discernment by gaining wisdom. It's not just knowledge. Think about it. The people who get the degrees full of knowledge, do they have wisdom? Do they have discernment? Not likely. Yes, Ryan, I agree. Maybe it's time we don't send them to those places for education. Correct, Stephen. Informed consent is the key, not blind faith. I agree. You cannot put, and I talked about this yesterday, Stephen. If you had your $1 million, okay, and you worked your entire life for that $1 million, are you just going to willy-nilly trust your financial advisor with your $1 million? Or are you going to ask them questions? Why are you putting it here? Why are you investing here and not there? What are you doing? Let's talk about this. Why did it go down yesterday? Why did it go up today? You would ask more questions to your financial advisor than you do to your doctor. I don't know where that came from, how many years ago, but I'm guessing is the early 1900s where we put all of this full faith into our doctors and they can do no wrong. And then when they do wrong, we just sue them. and then they just double down on guidelines. As long as they double down on guidelines, they can't, the judge is going to protect them. They followed every rule in the book. You're the one that's out of luck, okay? Oh, Johnny follows, I follow you and Dr. Ekberg. I like Dr. Ekberg. Johnny, acid reflux equals a PPI. No, it doesn't. Acid reflux is from something, and a PPI is going to make it worse. It's masking the symptoms. When you're on a PPI, it's changing the normal pH of your body, your stomach acid. A PPI is going to make it less acidic, so it's going to raise the pH. When you raise the pH, you're actually acting like an oxalate and a phytate. When you take a proton pump inhibitor like omeprazole, Prilosec, Prevacid, Z-Grid, all of those, you are actually changing the pH of your stomach, so you will not absorb B vitamins, calcium, magnesium, iron, selenium, zinc, amino acids. PPIs lead to dementia. PPIs lead to osteoporosis. Remember, if you're not absorbing calcium, bones are made out of calcium. If you're not absorbing amino acids are over 40% the protein content of the bones. So now you're lacking calcium and amino acids, and you wonder why you got osteoporosis? Taking a PPI will lead you to that. But you might not know it because you'll be demented and have brain fog, so you might not know that you have osteoporosis. Ignorance is bliss, right? Jack, I feel for you. Jack says, I sometimes feel like screaming. I have to watch my stubborn family ill with diet-related illnesses. Jack, work on yourself. If there is one piece of advice, you need to just worry about yourself. They will see the fruits of your work. If they don't, that is on them. You are not responsible for them. You're not responsible for their feelings. You're not responsible for their diseases, their illnesses. You're not responsible for them. They are responsible for them. So Jack, boundaries. Have boundaries. Work on you. Do not react. Do not justify. Do not argue. Do not defend. And do not explain. That is the mnemonic for Jade. J-A-D-E. Boundaries, Jack. Let it go. Kayla says, what is a good way to get off serotonin? I don't understand your question. Are you talking about an antidepressant? You need to talk to your doctor about getting off your antidepressant, if that's what you're talking about. Good job, Shelley. I'm proud of you. Yeah, that's a good point, Nancy. Knowledge versus applied knowledge. Oh, sertraline. It's not serotonin. Yeah, you have to wean off. But I would talk to your doctor, get a plan. Say, doctor, I want off of my Zoloft. I want to go slow. And they're going to say, are you sure? You have to ask yourself, Kayla, what caused the depression in the first place? Okay. West Cruz, thank you. If that is, man, that's devastating if that is true. But thank you for sharing. Amy, I appreciate you for being here. Thank you. Just share and like and subscribe. And help me out. If you find something I was wrong about, email me, okay? And then we look it up together. Oh, you're welcome, Jack. Trust me, Jack, I was actually talking to myself as I was talking to you, okay? So hear me out. Don't jade. It takes practice because you're reacting. You know you're right, but they've messed with your brain. They've messed with your reality. You don't have anybody to help you and be on your side. They're all against you. You think you know, you probably do know the truth, but they're distorting your reality. And they're deflecting onto you, and you're absorbing all of their illnesses, and you are taking the brunt of it, Jack. You're going to end up making yourself sick by the chronic stress that you're causing yourself. And no, most depression is not genetic. There's nothing about the last 100 years that the genes could have changed. This is something deeper. And that's why you got to peel the onions, the layers of the onions back to find out what that depression is. But it is not genetic. Okay? It might be epigenetic, but there's no gene that says depression or not depression without being fed by something the minute you came out of the womb. In fact, the minute you were in the egg developing into embryo and a baby, you were being affected by who was harboring you. Okay? Ann says, is there any value to testing your saliva or urine pH? I guess I would want to know why you would be checking it. Kayla says, how would you recommend cleaning out your pantry? What would be left? Get a black bag. Get a contractor bag. They're much thicker because I'm guessing everybody has a lot. So get a contractor's bag. You should have those anyway. Always have a lot of contractor bags at your house, okay? Keep them, I don't know, in your basement on the shelf. Contractor, big black bags. You would be surprised what you can use contractor big black bags for. But in your case, Kayla, just open the door and do one big giant sweep and push it into the big black contractor bags and start over. Thank you, Shelley. I do try to keep it real, but yeah. Let's see. Thank you, Kayla. Johnny asks a good question. Is betaine hydrochloride supplement good for acid reflux? My question to you is, why do you have acid reflux? Yes, it could be good. You could do apple cider vinegar. You could do the PPI for acid reflux, but why do you have the acid reflux? Get rid of the acid reflux and you won't need to take these things, okay? Jack says, what do you think of the new cancer blood tests that are coming out? Yeah, they are going haywire. I mean, now even Cologuard has their own. They're doing a cancer one. Gallery has one. It's unbelievable, but why? Is it so we can make more diagnoses and feed more pharma? I mean, if you look at it, a lot of people would say that the GLPs make the most money, or the statins made the most money, billions and trillions of dollars. But what about oncology medicines? If big pharma and big food were continuing to feed the cancers, wouldn't I want to run a test? Wouldn't I want to be the maker of a test that would diagnose you? Since it's so prevalent now, we put things in our body, chemicals and stuff, and we put food chemicals, and we put all kinds of plastics and all kinds of things, and we feed them with sugar and processed foods and PUFAs. And wouldn't you want to own a cancer test? You could just, and you're not really causing any harm. You just made the cancer test. You would make a bundle running a cancer test. But here's the thing. Do you want to know you have the cancer? I'm just asking. This is just an ethical question. Hypothetical. Do you want to know that you have a cancer? Do you want to know that you have the potential for the cancer? Or would you say, I don't want to know. I'm just not going to feed them the iron and the sugar and the PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and the alcohol and the tobacco, and I'm going to get out in the sun. It's going to be different for everybody. But you say, is it a good idea? It might be for you. Okay? It might be for you to get the cancer test. And maybe, for a woman, she says, I'm just going to, I got the cancer test. It says I got breast cancer. I'm just going to cut my breasts off now. That is a chilling thought. Okay? So you have to know when you run a test, what are you going to do with it? If you run a cholesterol test, what are you going to do with it? If you get a diabetes check, what are you going to do with it? You have to know what you're going to do with the information. I remember saying to myself when I wanted a test, well, why do you want to get the test? I asked myself that. I just want to know. Are you going to do anything different? No, probably not. Then why get the test? Well, the not knowing might be more cortisol raising than knowing. I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody should know themselves. Okay? When you go in and you get a test, a diagnosis is going to be made. I know they do, Dianamus. That's why you just got to let it go. Don't jade. Don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. Let it go, Dianamus. Just let it go. Thank you, Shelley. So when you make a diagnosis, guess who gets notified? Your insurance company. What happens to your rates? Likely go up for everybody. For everybody. This is a game. You can be players of the game. You can be knowledgeable about the game, but you might not want to play along. You have to know what's good for you. Yeah, who is it? And I can maybe take care of them. What's their handle? Shelley and Dianamus. What is the handle so I can? I can't see them. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I see. All right. Good. How about that, you guys? All right. Speaking of stress hormones, how do you get cortisol down? Sleep. Sleep. Okay. Thank you, Patricia. Sleep is the most important one. Being around happy people. Okay. Getting out in the sun. Getting in nature. What makes you happy, Kayla? Because the things that are making you stressed is raising cortisol. We need cortisol. Do not hear me say that we don't need cortisol. You would die if you did not have cortisol. It's just that we have too much. And so calming yourself and not being in constant sympathetic overdrive, chronic fight or flight. Sometimes that means raising your parasympathetic calming side. So maybe, okay, I can't get rid of the stress, but I got to learn how to calm myself. I got to learn how to shift into parasympathetic tone. And that's going to be somewhere how I got to raise my GABA. How do I raise GABA? I could take GABA, and that would help my parasympathetic tone. I could do breathing exercises, vagal nerve exercises. That will help with my parasympathetic tone. I'm going to get rid of sugar. Sugar is going to raise that. I'm going to change the light bulbs in my house. That can change that. So read on increasing exercises and things to increase parasympathetic tone. Para, P-A-R-A, parasympathetic tone. Okay? All right, you guys. I think we've done good today. Yes, Jack, exercises did wonders to lower your stress and cortisol. And some people, I have mentioned this to several people, sometimes we have to take GABA. Just take a supplement of GABA. It might just be the game changer with the exercises, of course, okay? Learning to calm yourself down. But sometimes, you know what? Take a little bit of GABA. I don't know. Kayla, get up if you're sitting all day. It sounds like you just answered your own question. Harold, maybe you want to consider a consult and we can go over your iron studies, okay? So if you guys want to do a consult, we'll call it quits today. But for consultations, email me at IronLadyDoc, IronLady, IronLadyDoc, DOC, at AOL.com. I can help you order your lab tests. No, they're not paid for by insurance. I can set you up with a consult if that's what you would like, and we can go over your medications, your diagnoses. Read the description, okay? It's in the description. But I'm available every Saturday at 9 a.m. Central and every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central, okay? I'm online doing this, talking through things. We're going to talk through all this together, okay? You're going to like and subscribe, and you're going to share, and you're going to do all the clickety-clack and help me out, all right? And you're going to leave me time. You're doing the clickety-clack, and you leave me time to educate myself. Read books, listen to other providers, get smarter, get more wise, all of those things, and then I share it with you, and then you share it with somebody else, and we compound it, and we spread the word, okay? And the word is, it's Sunday, you guys. The word is truth. The word was God, and the word was with God, and it is God. So you guys have a beautiful Sunday, and we'll see you next Saturday, Lord willing, okay? See ya.